minutes before 8 right now. In 1963, a group of 4 young men were just starting to become famous in England. John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. They had 2 hits to their credit then, Love Me Do and Please Please Me. And already people were talking about Beatlemania.
You know you twist so fine, twist so fine. Come on and twist a little closer now. Now let me know that.
It was into this rather wild and crazy time that John Lennon's first son Julian was born. His father had to literally wear a disguise to get past the fans at the hospital to see his new baby. Well, tomorrow Julian will be 19. This morning he and his mother, Cynthia Lennon Twist, are joining me from London by satellite. Julian, nice to meet you. Cynthia, nice to see you again.
Hello, David.
Hello, David.
Very well, thank you. Julian, that was such a busy time as you know, your dad's group was getting going. What's your earliest memory of your dad?
I suppose around the late 60s, really, because I don't remember much about the early 60s because of moving around so much.
But what is your earliest memory? What was it like to remember him in the late 60s?
It's very hard to describe, but I mean, my memory's not that clear on the later 60s as it is, but it was just a famous dad who I was living with and had fun with all the time. And what more can I say?
Your dad is quoted as saying at one time, "I don't remember seeing Julian as a child," unquote. How much time were you able to spend with him?
In the early years or the later years?
Well, early.
Well, I didn't really see that much of him in the early years because he was very busy and on tours all the time. But in the later years I saw him a lot more, and we became really great friends after a while. It was getting better all the time.
Cynthia, what was that time like? You were getting used to fame. You were dealing with all the things that John was. What was that time like with a new baby and his growing and John's growing fame? What was it like?
Exciting, thrilling, frightening. Oh, you name it. It was it, the time.
Julian, your mom and dad separated when you were 5, and your dad then married Yoko Ono. What did the relationship become for you later? You just said that, you know, it grew and grew. How did it grow? How much time did you see him and spend with him, and what was it like?
Well, at first I didn't see him for maybe 5 years or more, and Mum got in contact with Dad later on, and I spoke to Dad on the phone, and he said, well, why don't we arrange a meeting, you know, because we haven't seen each other for such a long time. And it gradually grew from that. The years that we saw each other became closer and closer, until the last few years it was virtually every 6 months or whenever I wanted to go and visit him.
How did his death affect you, Julian?
A lot, obviously, but I really don't want to look back on that particular time that much, you know. It's too upsetting to think about too much, and I prefer not to.
Right. How much did he work with you on your music? Because you're a musician. Did he work with you? Did he help you? Did he guide you? Did he advise you? What?
Well, every time I went over, we'd have a guitar each, and we'd sit down on the floor in the lounge or something, and just he'd teach me stuff, and I'd play him the stuff I knew, and he'd just help me out in that way, and also by going to the studios with him when he was recording albums, you know, showing me around. It was really interesting and helpful.
What do you want for your life? What do you want to do with yourself?
Well, I really hope to be, well, a musician, but I don't know how long it's going to take for me to eventually bring it out into the open, because I'm spending so much time at home trying to write and write tunes as well. But I honestly don't know how long it's going to take at the moment.
Cynthia, Cynthia, are you encouraging Julian to go into music, and given the fact he's got a pretty tough act to follow?
A very difficult act to follow, but Julian has a great deal of talent, and he's going to follow in his father's footsteps, and hopefully he'll be very successful in his own right.
Julian, I don't think anyone seeing you, meeting you, can mistake the fact that you look a lot like your dad, and your hair and your glasses and so forth. Is that potentially a problem for you, of being too identified with your dad for you to be your own person?
Well, only in a sense that if I go out, people sort of look at me in that respect. But as far as me wearing glasses and my hair, it's whatever's comfortable for me is what I wear, you know, like jeans now or whatever, you know, the whole thing. It's all the same.
How concerned are you, though, about making your own life, making your own mark as Julian Lennon, and being in your dad's footsteps? How much does that concern you?
Well, I'm trying to keep as a good enough distance to play my music in my own right, but as yet I don't know quite how I'm going to go about it, really. I'm not sure.
Cynthia, how much of John do you see in Julian, and how?
Oh, a tremendous amount I see in Julian of John. I mean, Julian is John's son. Julian is, in looks, very similar, and in temperament, very similar, and artistically and musically, very similar.
Julian, there were a couple of articles that appeared in newspapers here in the United States recently, in the month of March, that appear to have been written by you. Did you write those?
Not as such, no. It was basically an interviewer came to the house or whatever and did an article on me, with me just saying, if you remember, I've forgotten the word, but saying the past, you know, talking about the past. And whatever happened from that point, from her giving the article to the publishers or the editor, is something else, you know, because the stories have always seemed to have changed round, you know.
Well, that's why there are a couple of things that you're quoted as saying. One, that your dad offered you some marijuana when you were 12. Is that true?
Well, I'd rather not go into that, you know, because it might stir some other trouble up, you know, I don't know.
Also, you're quoted as saying in one of these articles that your dad was a fairly crazy person, unquote. Did you...
Yeah,
How accurate is that?
Well, crazy in the sense that fun, not crazy, but crazy fun, you know. It was more like practical jokes on everyone, which was great at the time, whenever I saw him. And vice versa, whenever I saw him sometimes.
Cynthia, what are you doing now? What are you working on? You're always busy, I know.
Busy. Well, I'm working on a book at the moment of illustrations, and hopefully by the end of the year it'll be completed. So I'm really into painting and getting on with life and enjoying myself.
Well, Cynthia, it's wonderful seeing you again. Julian, nice meeting you. Thanks for joining us from London today.
Thank you, David.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. We'll be back.